Does this make me look like a koala? Did I just blank out? I don't know where I was going with that. Not the month for reading, not the month for video, not the month for my career. Let me just squeeze on over here for a second and join all of my fellow international booktuber friends in the international booktuber tag. Thank you so much, Kat at Curious Cat, for tagging me in this video. I do believe the original booktuber creator for this tag is Only If for a Page. So thank you so much for starting this tag. I'm a little bit of a special case, so I hope you guys don't mind me squeezing into your international booktuber space. I do think that I am someone who fairly loves listening to anyone, everyone, and everything about books. So for me, I have made so many great and wonderful friends in the booktuber community, and some of them are international, so I'm really grateful for that. And honestly, I think the international booktuber community is a wonderful place to be. I just love hearing and listening to everyone's thoughts and opinions, and you know what, I basically found my twin, aka Lauren, across the whole globe for me. So I just love the space and I love everything about it, and I hope at the very least, even though I am in the US, I can at least shine some light on some international booktubers that I love to follow, I listen to, and I watch all their videos. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the first question is, where are you from and what is your native language? Now, as I said before, I am a little bit of a special case. Technically, right now, I do reside in the United States. However, my native language is actually Vietnamese, and I came from Vietnam. I immigrated here when I was 10 or 11 years old, so I have this awkward space where my native language is Vietnamese, but I kind of speak very interestingly, and a lot of people who speak Vietnamese kind of notice this, is that I speak kind of like a 10 or 11-year-old, because that was the concept of the language that I grasped since I came over here around that age. But some of the wording I use is very old. So I think a good example is like, oh my god, like I learned this word from my parents, right? And my parents are what, in their 70s now, almost 70. And so the word that I use for oh my god is more of an older generational word, whereas like I believe more people of my age use a different term for oh my god. It's kind of like the same between like you have game versus you have riz. There's like that generational difference. So when I talk, they say I talk very old, but then I have the grammar and the language usage that I use is like a 10-year-old. So I'm kind of like in this weird mixed medium vibe. I don't know. I just thought it's kind of funny to share that with you all. At this point, is it safer to say that I think English is probably my better language between the two? Probably, but I think it has to do with the fact that I'm using it a lot more because I live in the US, where the primary language is English. Though I do feel like sometimes my English is not as good as those who learned English from a younger age than 10. I think 10 is already kind of generous. Like, I feel like 10 is still at the border where I don't have much of an accent. I do have an accent on some words, but not all words. But then I do feel like grammatically, I am just not there 100%. Also, I don't know if y'all noticed, but English grammar is kind of all over the place. Personally, that's just what I think. And I am once again on a tangent, so let's go back to the questionnaire and move on to question number 2, which is, what languages do I read in my books? So I read in English primarily. Well, I don't know if I should say primarily. I only exclusively so far have read in English. In college, I actually took a Vietnamese class, and I went all the way to kind of like the 100 series, which is above or intermediate Vietnamese. So I would say I'm pretty good at reading and writing Vietnamese as well, but I haven't done that since I've gone out of college, and it's been 7-8 years. It's been a hot minute. All right, so actually this kind of inspired me because I just realized that I personally don't pick out literature in Vietnamese. So hopefully in the coming year, I'm gonna try to at least pick 1 or 2 books in Vietnamese. It's probably going to be a middle grade book, since I'm not 100% confident in my reading skills yet, but I do find it really exciting, and I think I'm going to try that in the coming year for sure. booktuber, practice my Vietnamese, and really embrace my culture. I'm not saying like I push my culture out or anything, but I just feel like as I'm getting older, I'm getting less and less exposure to my culture and my language. But I really appreciate this tag because now I have like a goal in mind for next year to really just pick up a book that is out of my comfort zone and read it in my native language. So I'll keep you guys updated on how that goes in the coming year. At this point, I should have thought it was suspicious when my video was probably less than like 15 minutes for a tag video, alright? Even with all my rambling, because somehow it is now 3 in the morning. As I'm editing the video, I realize I forgot not one, not two, but 3 questions. I have no words. I have nothing to say about this except for the fact that I'm going to quickly answer the question now so I can review it, edit it, do all that good stuff, and get it published because I am determined. I am determined on this day. Even if I have one all-nighter, it's going to get done. It's gonna get published because I was so arrogant in thinking that I was ahead of the curve. Like I filmed it, I edited it, I did all the preview, and then I was watching Kat's video and I was like, I don't know what happened. I wrote a script. I always write scripts for tag videos, and then I just didn't include 3 of the questions. I literally included the first 2 or 3 and then the last 2, and then I don't know what happened to the middle question. Did I just blank out while I was doing it? Okay, all the rambling aside, let's move on to the next question that is supposed to be in the tag, which is there a booktube in your native language, and if so, what is the community like? Honestly, I did not really realize or explored the Vietnamese booktube community until I did this booktuber tag, and quite honestly, I find it a little bit intimidating just because I don't speak the language extremely fluently and well, but it is a very small, tight-knit community, and I found it really interesting that people are talking about books that are currently even popular right now in the United States. So for some examples that I've seen of people talking about book is like Circe, and then I saw also like 451 Fahrenheit 1984 and Song of Achilles. So like these books are books that I have heard of very recently, and we talked about some of these books even on my YouTube channel. So I found it really fascinating that the Vietnamese booktube community also read English books. So I thought that was really interesting. The whole conversation was in Vietnamese and the discussions about the books were completely in Vietnamese, but the 2 booktubers that I saw and I watched both talked about books that were translated. So one example was Song of Achilles was a translated variation of it. And then we have another booktuber who is Vietnamese and is learning English, or I think she knows English fairly well because she did read The Song of Achilles 1984 and 451 Fahrenheit, all in English, and then she gives her perspective and opinions and thoughts in Vietnamese. So I thought that was super fascinating. But like I said, I do think that the community is a little bit small and it's a little bit harder for me to find since a lot of the discussion and topics and the titles are written in Vietnamese, and I can write, but it's not the best and it's not the most perfect, but I can still, put in Vietnam on booktube. I think booktube is kind of like the overarching word that even in Vietnamese it is in. They talk about booktube as just booktube. There's no Vietnamese translation for it. And even book hauls, they call them book hauls and not the Vietnamese equivalent of it, which I thought was really interesting. The next question is, if there is a booktube community in your native language, why did you choose the international community? Now, this one is a little bit different for me because even though Vietnamese is my native language, English is my preferred language. It's the language that I use the most often and I am the most fluent in, even though Vietnamese is technically my native language. I mean, initially when I joined Booktube, I didn't realize that there was even like a specific Booktube for just a specific country even. I just came on here, and because English is such a universal language, I managed to integrate into the international community along with, I guess, the American community as well. But I think I would have loved to join the Vietnamese one. However, unfortunately, even as I was watching some of the Vietnamese videos of the Vietnamese booktuber community, especially with harder books like like 1984, I have a good understanding of the Vietnamese language. I can listen to it and hear it and understand the broad strokes. But sometimes I would have to Google and search up words. I guess for a really good example is a big thing about 1984 is communism. And for me, Vietnam is a communist country, and yet I do not know what is the word for communist and communism in Vietnamese. However, when I listen to the videos, it clicks in my head, but on top of my head right now, if I were to try to explain and talk about the books that I've read, I can't put it together. Like the best thing I can say is, oh, mình thích cuốn sách này lắm, which is I really like this book. Honestly, I feel like I wouldn't be able to be an active participant because any description and thoughts I have on a book wouldn't be really clear, and I wouldn't be able to just go into detail about why, what, when, where. And I think that makes it harder for me to be a part of that community. So that's why I am technically in the international / American community instead of the Vietnamese community for Booktube. The last question that I have forgotten about is, are there any struggles or challenges I have faced as a non-native English speaker? And on top of my head, the biggest struggle for me is the pronunciation of words, because English, the language, makes zero sense. All right, how you pronunciate words, absolutely zero sense. For me, as a Vietnamese speaker and someone who learned how to read Vietnamese at a young age, I can pick up a book, and even though my reading isn't up here, right, like I have about like a 10th or 11th grade reading comprehension at best, I can read and enunciate every single word that's on the page because the way we are taught and the words themselves never change on how they are pronounced. But in English, that just doesn't make any sense. I think a really good example is like two and two and two. Like, why do you have three words that mean different things but are pronounced the same way? Like, hello, like why is WO is equivalent to double O's, which is equivalent to single O? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Another good example is principal and principal. Like, hello, why are they pronounced the same? I have not faced that in the Vietnamese language very much. The only big thing about the Vietnamese dialect is that there are words that are very similar but have different meaning because we have accents on the word. So your tone and inclination of the word is what makes the word different than other. Whereas in English, it's writing it differently, but the sound is still the same, and that just doesn't really click in my head. And I think that is my biggest struggle with the English language. I am really bad at pronunciating things. It never clicks to me that a word can be pronounced the same way even though it's written differently, if that makes any sense. So a really good example from like a previous video is like Excalibur, Caliber, and Caliber. Like, zero sense to me, guys. Anyways, I think that about wraps up the missing portion of my video, and let's get right back onto the next question. Question number 3 is, how do I get a hold of English books? Now, I'm going to make this a little bit of a special case since I do live in the United States and our primary language is English. I'm just going to change this up on how I would go about purchasing books in a different language. And for me, I do believe that the first thing I would do is go to a bigger retailer store like Barnes & Noble to check out all of their books. They do have a section for other languages, and that's where I would browse just to kind of get an idea of what books I could pick up in a particular language that I want. But let's just say that I want to pick up a book in Vietnamese. I know what title it is and what I want, and I can't find it at the bigger retailer like Barnes & Noble. I would go on the internet to find the book that I want. And that's what's so great about today's World Wide Web. We have access to anything and everything that we could possibly want with a click of a button. So I would probably be ordering it off of a e-commerce website somewhere and have it delivered to my house. So the last question before we wrap up this video and I start tagging and shouting out all the wonderful international booktubers that I watch, it's going to be, what is so great about the international booktube community? Now, I can technically answer this in my native language, but I'm not going to do that because I feel like I would not be able to express myself as clearly and great as I would in English because, like I said, I talk like a 10-year-old, and also Vietnamese has a level to how you talk to people. So like if I talk to an adult, I would have to use specific words. I think in videos, you're supposed to talk to each other like peers, but I'm very used to talking to like my parents and grandparents and aunts. So it would be awkward, especially if anybody listened to it. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to answer this question, and it is the community. I've met so many wonderful booktubers, and the international booktubers really give a different perspective in life, and I really enjoy being able to see how different their life is compared to my life here. Honestly, I love their reading vlogs when they take us on their little adventures in their town, because I feel like I get to do the touristy thing. I get to travel at the comfort of my own home. That's probably my favorite thing about the international booktube community. But in terms of book specifically, when they read a book in its native language and they talk about it, I love hearing the intricacy of how that book might be a little bit different than what it would be in the translated version into English, or like the original English variation. Because I do think when sometimes in translation things get lost or mistranslated or taken on a more artistic property to fit the language better. So I really enjoy hearing about that. But I also just enjoy listening to people talk. Honestly, I'm just so happy to have been able to meet so many wonderful booktubers from across the whole freaking globe. And I think that's so awesome, because this community has allowed me to connect with people where I wouldn't think it would be possible. So the next question, I'm gonna group it with the tagging portion of this video, and it is to talk about the international booktubers that I do watch. And before we get started, first, if I did not mention you and you are an international booktuber, let me know in the comment section. Honestly, it might have just slipped my mind and I didn't realize it at the time, so I sincerely apologize if I did not shout you out. It is definitely a mistake on my part. And second of all, definitely go ahead and still do this video if you are an international booktuber, because I would love to know your answers to the video. I would love to know what your experience on Booktube in the international space is like. Now, without any further ado, I'm gonna kickstart this shout out with Kat at Curious Cat. She is the person who tagged me in this video, so thank you so much for remembering about me and tagging me in this. I'm so grateful to be included as part of the international community, so thank you so much, Kat. She is a writer. She's currently working on her very first novel, and I'm super excited about that. So if you're looking for a writer who is currently actively also showcasing her writing progress, she's keeping it very DL on what the story is about so that we don't spoil ourselves. So if you're interested in a booktuber who also has background in writing and has writing vlogs, I highly recommend you checking out Kat at Curious Cat. Now, the next person I'm going to shout out is Ellen at the Ellen Made Book Club. She has been such a wonderful friend in the booktuber community. I can always see her talking and having in-depth conversations with everyone, and honestly, she is such a delight. But not only that, all her picks have been spectacular. I love being able to participate into her book club every month, because I feel like I really expand my reading range. Her and my reading taste, I wouldn't say are one-to-one, but without a doubt, anytime I'm looking for a wonderful literary pick, or if I'm looking for a book that is completely out of my comfort zone that I would not normally pick up myself, I could just trust her advice, and any book that she enjoys, I could probably pick it up and enjoy it myself. And I think that's what's so wonderful about having her as a friend and having her as someone on the Booktube community to get recommendations from. Now, the first person I'm going to officially tag for this video is going to be Lauren at Love Lauren. A very common occurrence on my channel, but she's actually from Australia, and I am a knockoff version copy of her, okay? Anything I do, she does it better, but a million times, all right? I absolutely adore every single one of her recommendations. Her recommendations do not miss, all right? So if you're into romance and mangas, at the moment, she has a lot of videos surrounding that. But I know in the future, she does want to dabble back into sci-fi, fantasy, and classics, which were actually her primary read prior to coming on to Booktube, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, so feel free to correct me, Lauren, but I know that she did read in the past a lot more sci-fi and fantasy. And it just so happens that at the moment that she's on Booktube, she's been talking a lot more about romance picks and also with a lot of manga picks. So if you're looking for a good manga recommendation, I highly recommend checking out her channel. Now, the next person I'm going to tag is Fernanda at Trapped in My Book World. Welcome to Booktube. This is a little bit late. I've actually been following her on and off for the past couple of months or so, and I really enjoy her videos. She sounds like the sweetest person ever. She's Brazilian, and she's joining Booktube to just practice her English and also showcase her excitement and passion about books. my favorite video of hers so far has to be the Reckless one. She had so much emotion and thought about Reckless that made me pick up Powerless ASAP. Like, I saw all the emotions and all the thoughts she had about Reckless. I think she didn't like it as much as Powerless, but because of that, I was so excited. I actually picked up Powerless because of that video. And now I should honestly really read Reckless and see where she got all her emotions from for that book. But I have a long list of TBR. Okay, guys, I have a lot of things to be read right now. But anyways, welcome to the booktube community, Fernanda. I hope you do this tag video. No pressure though, but I think this tag video will be very fun and also integrate you into the international booktube community a little bit more. The next person I also want to tag is Ashley Bex Reed. She's technically Canadian, so I believe that includes her in the international community-ish, I think. But anyways, I really love her videos as she is honestly so sweet. We buddy read Caraval together and we had so many comments back and forth. She has a lot of thoughts and she's always very good at giving quick summaries of books that she is reading without spoilers. I know that I am absolutely terrible at that, but she does a great job with it. So if you guys enjoy cozy mystery, thrillers, mysteries in general, she also reads a little bit of romances here and there as well with some graphic novels. I think she is the perfect person to watch. All right, the last person I have to shout out, and I know you have already been tagged in this video multiple times, so no pressure, but this is part of my shout out, okay, Maria Andrea? So Maria Andrea at Books and Book Deals has been one of my favorite booktubers in the international community. She is just so calm and down to earth. I love her weekly update videos where she talks about her highs, her lows, her recipes, and all the books she's been reading, and just catching all of us up on her life updates. And it just makes me so happy because I genuinely feel like I'm just sitting at brunch with a friend and she's catching me up on her life. So Maria Andrea, this is your little shout out, so no pressure to do this tag. All right, I'm just gonna end the video here. I need to get cranking on editing this video because today, guess what day it is? Saturday. Yes, I am once again really late and really delayed on my videos, but to be fair, I have been catching up on my sleep because I've been just a little bit, just a little bit sleep deprived, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Fingers crossed that they all come up on time and not be like this weird vibe September has been, because honestly, September was not the month for me. Like, not the month for reading, not the month for video, not the month for my career, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I do have 5 more video tags that I have been tagged in, so I'm hoping to get those out in the coming month or months, maybe October and November. So be on the lookout for that. And if you are excited for those tags, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next week, hopefully for a monthly wrap-up video. Bye!